Tell us a little bit about what you saw and being able to relay that message to Cora when you watched Kimbrel pitch and kind of help out so he wasn't tipping his pitches.
So tipping pitches, we hear about it all the time.
People at home understand what tipping pitches is all about.
It's amazing.
And that's remarkable.
Alex, we have a very special episode on deck today. One that has been, dare I say, months in the making. When I went back and I was listening to voicemails when people first submitted their pitches for you to become a fan of a new team, those voicemails started rolling in around April of this month. It is July.
Yeah.
It's midway through July.
I mean, you could argue this has been in the works for years.
Some might say it's been in the works since you were a child.
I signed up to be an A's fan.
Of course, today on the podcast, we have the Alex Chooses a New Team episode. Should we have come up with a better name for this? Other than the very verbose Alex Chooses a New Team episode? New Team Pod? Alex's Fandom Power Hour? Alex for Sale? That's pretty good.
That's actually a pretty good one. Yeah, I was trying to think about like the term for like architecture, that like just like tells you what's inside it. Like say like I think of it
like a blueprint.
But I mean like a, it's like a basket store that's shaped like a basket, right? This is a team choosing podcast. So what better way to name it than the Alex Chooses a New? You know exactly what you're getting when you walk in. Alex for Sale leaves a little too much room for interpretation, I think.
I like the room for interpretation. I think the listeners will like it as well. MLB decided that they wanted to derail the Alex for Sale podcast before it even gets going. You know why? Because they dropped a big old piece of news for us. A Tipping Pitches branded piece of news. Can I read you a tweet from the one and only Bob Nightingale, a man whose tweets have not been read enough on this podcast this year, I fear.
Please do. I mean, for the listeners' context, I've been offline basically all day long, so I have no idea what's about to come out of your mouth, especially now that I know that it's a Bob Nightingale tweet. So I'm strapped in.
Have you been off all day long because you're protesting the downfall of Twitter and you've migrated all of your...
I'm all on Threads.
Threads, yeah. You've migrated.
I don't think
all
Bob's over there yet.
If Bob joined Threads, would we have to get on there? Are you on Threads? Do you have a Threads account?
I did make an... I didn't mean to...
What do you mean?
Well, it was like, me, right? And trying everything.
Yes.
On the face of the earth.
Exactly.
For shits and giggles.
Right.
And so out of curiosity, I did download the app, not realizing it was going to irreversibly link my Threads account to my Instagram account, handle and all. And now I can't delete the Threads account without deleting my Instagram account.
Oh, wow. That's hardcore.
It's really hardcore.
See, that's why I didn't make a Threads account. I downloaded Threads and I was like, I'll do this on the first day and I'll get B-Wags. But I don't have that on Instagram.
Right.
And so when I found out that it was just going to be my same old boring Instagram handle with numbers at the end, I was like, this is bullshit. I'm not signing up for this. And then I deleted Threads before I linked the account.
Yeah, I think you would have to make a B-Wags Instagram account, which I assume already exists in some fashion.
Yes. It took Herculean efforts for me to get B-Wags on Twitter.
Yeah.
If you think I'm leaving the Twitter platform just because a couple dumb Elon tweets, you're wrong.
Right. And now you spend all day long telling reply guys that you're not the football player.
Pretty much. Yes. Anytime he does anything, it's about 25 people tweeting at me being like, dude, great job today.
Yeah.
No, Bob Nightingale on twitter.com. Alex, brace yourself. Quote, MLB is working with Dow Chemical, trying to develop a baseball with a sticky substance.
Let's go.
You actually could not parody this if you try. Like, I challenge you right here, right now, in this room where we are together for the first time in what feels like months. Think of something funnier than that. I dare you. Think of an MLB partnership that could be funnier than that. What is it like? They hire Kissinger as commissioner emeritus?
It's too on the nose. First of all, isn't it widely known that MLB has their own sticky substance they put on the baseballs?
What, like
the
rosin?
Mud.
Oh, the mud.
The mud, right? There's the whole thing about the mud that they get.
Not cancerous enough.
It's not right, exactly.
It's naturally occurring. There's no money to be made in mud.
They haven't poisoned enough agriculture, right? Like,
honestly, they probably have. Sending people to the bottom of the Delaware River, they're probably like leaking chemicals during that process, but that's a whole different thing. And also probably not the worst offenders in the Delaware River, to be honest.
Yes, honestly. So is there more information about this, or was it just the top line, like they're working on it?
Just that Bob tweet. Haven't seen anything else about it.
This is the kind of thing that like we do, right? Where we're like, we're working on a climate pod.
Stop bringing up the climate pod. You bringing up the climate pod leads to
is the only thing
bare
that reminds
minimum
people that
three
that
people being like, "What's the climate pod?" And us having to like put our tail between our legs and run home.
It's the bed we've made. I don't know what to tell you.
I suppose it is, but even if we're not delivering on the climate pod today, we are delivering on a long-awaited podcast. Alex for sale. Alex chooses a new team. Alex has been shunned. He has been hurt. He has been let down, led astray, hoodwinked. He has been bamboozled by his close personal friend, John J. Fisher. He has been Benedict Arnolded. Benedict Arnolded. Past tense verb of a man's name by John Fisher and the Oakland Athletics and Dave Cavill. And so today on the podcast, we will be running through all 30 Major League Baseball teams, Oakland A's included, and we will be putting them through a rigorous rubric to determine their candidacy to become the team that Alex Baisley roots for. More about why that's a worthwhile endeavor for these teams to come. But before we do that, I am Bobby Wagner.
I'm Alex Baisley.
And you are listening to Tipping Pitches.
Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. And Alex, please tell me how it works.
Bobby, it would be my honor. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, if you've got a full studio or you're staring at a Zoom screen right now, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and anywhere else podcasts are heard.
Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, Q&A and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch.
We host Tipping Pitches on Spotify for Podcasters. It makes it really easy to distribute our podcast to all you lovely listeners. If it's something you're interested in trying out, you can download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Alex, let me just start this with a quick programming note. There's going to be a couple quick programming notes here. We're going to explain what this exercise is.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to say something that if you are an astute listener or an astute reader of the podcast description, you no doubt already know that this is just part one of a two-part podcast where we find you a new team. I'm just going to be front street with this. Dear listener, we thought and hoped that this would be just a one-parter, but it turns out that it demanded enough time, enough academia to be worthy of two parts. And also because you were going to be out of town next week. And so we needed something to fill the week anyway. So these are just how these things happen. Alex, before we put these teams through the ringer, before we put them on the podium, before we start grilling them in the job interview, would you like to turn the tables a little bit? And would you like to make a pitch as to why you're a great fan? Why you will be a positive addition to the team for any of these franchises?
I don't know. I'd go positive.
Oh.
I think if say an MLB owner looked at either of us as baseball fans, we're not the platonic ideal, probably.
Big tent, though.
A big tent.
Let us in.
Look, I put 26 years and change into the Oakland A's. I woke up every day, put on that cap, pulled on my gloves, pulled on my bootstraps, and got ready for whatever the fight of the day was, and I did that tirelessly. And without recognition.
Right. You're just a humble soldier
Exactly.
in the Oakland Athletics Army.
Foot soldier for JJF.
Tighten up those boots. Standing at attention every morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. I owe 700 hours, as they say in the military. I have to say, I know this is a momentous occasion for you. And I know that this is a bit that we're doing on a podcast. But this is also a momentous occasion for me. For as long as I can remember, our friendship has been very intertwined with baseball and the teams that we root for, being equally cursed in different ways, in different, unique, painful ways. And I believe you were wearing an Oakland A's hat the first time we ever had a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You might have been. It must have been an A's hat because I wouldn't have approached you and talked to you if you're wearing a Cal hat.
Right.
This was just like a big Bears guy. I mean, it was on brand for you to either be wearing an A's or a Cal hat, but I think that the conversation started would have been A's. So I'm pretty sure this is the reason that we have this podcast.
It absolutely. I mean, you're sitting here wearing an Oakland A's shirt.
I know. Did you like that?
Right now, that was good. That was a good touch.
It's like you wear a picture of someone to a picture of someone on your shirt to their funeral. This whole podcast energy is kind of like the meme of those men carrying the casket at the funeral with the funny music playing. You know that meme that that I'm good at describing on this podcast. What's the shorthand for that meme? I don't know. They're wearing sunglasses. You know the meme.
I'm not gonna.
Did that meme make
debase myself to try and explain it further?
Did that meme make it to Threads yet? You see that one yet? Or are you gonna a couple months from now?
You'll get it a couple months from now. Yeah, my viral Threads account.
If I can be made fun of for seeing 3-week-old TikToks on Reels, you can be made fun of for seeing 3-month-old memes from Twitter.
It's all brands, It's like Wendy's hopping in McDonald's replies and being like, "I'd like to grim that ass," like.
The fact that you don't work for one of these companies in social media copy is just like a modern crime of our times. So you have created a rubric, and many, many listeners have made submissions as to why you should root for either their team, a team that they think would be a good fan experience, or otherwise, miscellaneous otherwise. We will get to that as we go along. How we're going to do this is, you're first going to explain your rubric and why you chose these things. And then we're just going to go team by team, organized by division. And we're going to rate them on the rubric. And then at the end, we'll have a final list of contenders based on who scored the highest. And you will choose at the end, if you so decide. I suppose at the end of this, you could really edge everyone and just be like, I'm not going to choose this week. Tell me about the rubric. Did you work hard on this formula? You were grinding away.
I was grinding away. You know me. I love a good spreadsheet.
How much code went into this? First of all, what code language? R?
Right. Ruby.
Never heard of that one.
C++.
I know that one.
There you go. None of these. It was equals sum the following Excel cells.
Okay, great.
No, I mean, I think it's an interesting exercise every so often to sort of zoom out and take stock of what really matters to you when rooting for a baseball team. And I think that this exercise really made clear in my mind that there's sort of two elements to that. One is the actual baseball that you're watching. Do I want to sign up and watch 162 games of this team?
And that's the stakes here. You will have to watch every single game for all of eternity.
Right.
Forever and eternity, to borrow a phrase
I have to suit up in the same jersey they're wearing.
Right.
You
have to try to run on the field at least once a year. That's the stakes.
Right. And the goal is to not get found out, right? The goal is to maybe have them mistake Trey Turner for the fan running on the field or something.
You look a little bit like Trey Turner. You could be Trey Turner.
I tried to pick someone who wasn't above 6 feet.
I think he is still above 6 feet, but I don't know. Maybe in comparison to Alec Boehm, he doesn't look like that.
They're all 4 inches on my TV.
That's
no. There's
They're just my little friends on the TV. I want everyone to know that I've slept 45 minutes in the last 36 hours. So this podcast might
We're going to be
really
recording longer than the amount of sleep that you have gotten in the last 2 days.
That's right. Since we did the last podcast.
Yes.
It's just all pods. It's all pods all the way down, baby.
So success, right? How good is the team? What are the prospects of the team?
Right.
What is...
Sell me this team.
Yeah. What is the star... who is the guy
on
this team? So there's that element of it. And then there's the aesthetic element of it, which I think as I've grown older has grown far more important, right? What is actually going to see a baseball game in that team's stadium? Do they have a jersey that I would be actually willing to spend egregious amounts of money on buying, despite my aversion to jerseys? What is a broadcast booth like? What are the things that like make taking in the baseball game enjoyable, regardless of how good the actual product of the sport is? So a lot of these categories are ones that I went through and thought about with each team and tried to assign a not at all subjective, but attempt at being a subjective rating.
You mean objective?
No, it's an attempt at being subjective. My opinions are objective.
You can attempt to be more subjective. You're trying to make it more skewed towards yourself.
Right, exactly. I mean, the third category that I didn't mention because I did not assign any score to is like the ethical cloud around each team, right? Like how does the team engage with the community?
So are some of these teams just like straight up DQ'd already in your mind? I imagine that there are some teams that you just basically didn't even consider.
Right. I mean, there's definitely a handful of teams that, when putting together these rankings and like summing out all the scores and everything like that, like they don't perform very well. And some of them perform really well in like the aesthetic category of those things, right? But like the Tigers aren't doing much to make their case right now.
Spoiler. No spoilers. Save it. Save it for the Tigers. Save it for the AL Central. Okay. Are you ready to do it?
I think so.
Should we just dive right into it? This is going to take a long time, so I feel like we should get into it.
We probably should.
Let's go through the categories. There are 6 categories. First one, team performance. This is worth 15 points in your mind.
Yeah, loose point values assigned to each of these categories. So this takes into account like recent success of the team as well as future prospects, right? Do they have 8 top 100 prospects?
No one has 8 top 100 prospects. Well, actually, no one has 8 top 100 prospects that are not already in the majors. I'll say that.
Yes. Yeah. The Orioles are kind of scooping themselves here by calling them all up.
Like in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
Next category, player likability. This is also worth 15 points.
Yeah, and this one more oriented towards like who are the stars on the teams, who are the ones that you're gravitating towards, as well as like how they conduct themselves, so to speak. Again, some of these categories, super like ephemeral, not something you can assign any sort of objective rating to, but like it's like vibes. What are the players' vibes?
Yeah, there are plenty of good players who are less likable just by nature of you don't know as much about them. Third category, team culture. This is worth 20 points. Weighted a little bit more than like player likability and team performance. In your mind, what is included in team culture? Because that can mean a lot of things. Yeah,
and team culture, really huge umbrella that I think, I tried to fold in the fan culture of that as well, right? So this takes into account like fan traditions, if you're visiting the ballpark, that sort of thing. Like how strong is the rallying cry around a given team? Are you seeing their fans at every other baseball game that you go to, right? Again,
sticking with the A's.
Sticking with the A's.
Always see one dude in an A's hat every single time you go to a baseball game.
Yep.
There is always one man in an A's baseball cap. Sometimes that man is Alex Baisley. Okay, team culture. In my mind, when you say team culture, you know what I picture? I picture like a Yankees fan being like 27 rings, bro. Like that's the culture around. That's the fan culture around that team. Like we are the elite of the elite. This is how we talk about ourselves. This is how we pretend that we are better than everybody else. And like that is appealing in some ways, and that is unappealing in other ways. It'll just be up to you once we get to the Yankees.
Yeah, and like some of these, I did consult. I went around. I wanted to see what is the field saying, right? What are other people who are thinking about these things? How are they thinking about them? And like you mentioned, the fan culture. That's one that I found myself really diverting from a lot of the broader public opinion because like fan culture, they're like the Cardinals, the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Sox, and I'm like, these might be fun fan bases to grow up in 100%, but from an outsider's perspective, are not always the most endearing.
Easily the funniest thing ever would be if you chose the Cardinals out of this. Category number 4, aesthetics. This is also worth 20 points.
Yeah.
Is this just which team has the hottest players, or is this a different type of aesthetics?
Well, it's not considered. Here I was thinking about uniform. And stadium, really, right? So this takes into account uniform design, both for the player, but also for me, right? And so part of the way I thought about this is I'm not thinking about which team necessarily has the best collection of jerseys because they all have like 12, right? But who's are rising to the top, right? I'm not going to buy all 7 Astros variations, but if I'm a fan of them, I might buy the best one. So I want to know they have a good one at least.
Okay. Number 5. This is only worth 10 points. So only half as much as the last couple categories that we named. This is geographic location. I assume this is in relation to where we sit right now.
That is
the
true.
Place where you live.
Can I hop on a subway to see them? Can I hop on a train to see them, or do I need to buy a plane ticket?
Are you factoring in where you might live in your future?
No, which is key. So it's New York centered.
New York or nowhere, baby. You're such a coastal elitist.
I really am a coastal elitist, which is really, yes. The names that rose to the top again are some eye roll,
shameful
choices.
Shameful.
I mean, the irony is that proximity actually didn't end up weighing.
It didn't make or break it.
I mean, I included it, but turns out Dodgers have a lot else going for them.
Stop spoiling. The 6th and final category. This is tipping pitches. The 6th and final category is ownership conduct.
Yeah, and this is the real vibes one. Didn't assign point values here, even though it's on my rubric. It's kind of like, does your team have a crimes.xlsx doc?
You're really throwing the Dodgers fans through a loop. You're like, they're great, but also they have a crimes doc, so you don't know what to expect. You're really jerking them around. We haven't even started.
Have they been under federal investigation at any point in the last decade?
This is more like a pass-fail category then?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Shall we start this? Shall we go through the teams?
I'm a little intimidated now, but yeah, I think we should.
I have them organized by division. The Central's first, the East's next, and the West's last. Does that order sound okay with you?
Yeah, get the Flyer states out of the way. Is that what you were saying?
Actually, that was just the order that they were in on ESPN.com when I Googled MLB teams. I was just writing them down in that order. I don't know why they were in that order, but that was the order that they were in. First up is the Chicago White Sox, owned by none other than Jerry Reinsdorf. Notable players from the Chicago White Sox. Keep in mind, listener, if you're a fan of this team, there's a high percentage chance you know much more about these teams than we do. Please do not write us emails or call in and say you forgot to name X player in notable players. These are the current war leaders and or stars of the most recent seasons of these teams. There's a good chance that I missed some up-and-comers on your team who are having a breakout season this year because I have not watched all of these teams consistently this year. That is my disclaimer for now. I might have to remind people throughout the course of this podcast. Notable players, Luis Robert Jr. You might have seen him in the Home Run Derby. Dylan Cease, Lucas Giolito, Tim Anderson, Yohan Moncada. Current top 100 prospects who have not debuted yet. Colson Montgomery and Brian Ramos. Top 100 prospects according to Fangraphs.com, the website that we trust the most when it comes to these things. Alex, you tell me, do you want to tell me what you are thinking about the White Sox first? Or would you like me to play the voicemail that we have for the White Sox before you make your judgment?
Yeah, let's hear the voicemails first. I want to hear the fan pitches so I can take it all into account.
I'm glad you made that choice. Here's the voicemail that we have for the Chicago White Sox.
Hi, Bobby and Alex. This is Dan from the south side of Chicago, just calling with an entry into the Pick a New Team contest. Do not become a White Sox fan. Whether or not Jerry or his descendants end up selling the team, it will break your heart all over again. Good luck.
Oh, Dan. I hurt for you, sir.
And I admire the self-awareness, you know?
The frankness, the honesty. This is the respect that our listeners have for you.
Clearly.
They're not trying to sign you up for more pain. They've seen what you have gone through.
Yeah.
Are the White Sox in contention?
You know, it's interesting because they ultimately rank pretty low in the overall scoring, which I think mostly had to do with the fact that they've kind of had a middling level of success over the last few years.
Last few decades.
Last few decades.
the exception of 2005.
Yeah, I will say when I was thinking about recent success, I was looking at like last 5 to 7 years, right? So is there any level of success maybe that like might still be with the team if you were good in the 90s? Sorry, that doesn't mean a damn thing to me. They don't have a very robust farm system either. They consistently rank pretty low in the sort of rankings that exist on the internet. And this is despite the fact that on the aesthetic side, they ended up in the top 10 for me. I know some people are hit or miss with the jerseys. I love the black and white jerseys. I think it looks really clean. Their broadcast booth consistently is ranked really, really well. I love watching White Sox games. Jason Benetti is an absolute gem in the booth. So it does feel like the team to the front from the outside. I look at it and I'm like, yeah, great. Eloy Jimenez, Dylan Cease. I hear you, Dan. It might be a little harder living that.
See, I left Eloy Jimenez off. Look at that. I already forgot a guy. Once again, 45 minutes of sleep. Dan is right. This is they fail the ownership conduct category. The level of dysfunction is just, why would you sign yourself up for that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. There should be a have they hired Tony La Russa within the last 5 years category.
You made the categories. That would have been a really good joke. Have they ever employed Tony La Russa? Goodbye. Okay.
That would be a good way actually to knock a few of these teams off.
Yeah, exactly. Next up, Cleveland Guardians. Owned by the Dolan family, controlling person Paul Dolan. Notable players: Jose Ramirez, Andres Jimenez, Josh Naylor, Stephen Kwan, Shane Bieber, Emmanuel Clase, Bo Naylor, Logan Allen, and Tanner Bibby. Quite a list there of interesting players. Top 100 prospects who have not debuted yet. Brian Rocchio. The pronunciations are really... We're going to get a lot of notes about this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell people right away. Gavin Williams and Daniel Espino. They got another Daniel Espino. Wasn't there a Daniel Espino that was like 40 and he's like already retired? Wasn't he on the Nationals at some point?
Yeah.
That's Paolo Espino. Close. David Roth rolling
So
over.
you're 50% of the way there.
We did not get any pitches for the Cleveland Guardians from the Tipping Pitches listenership. So I turn it to you. Where do the Cleveland Guardians rank?
Another team that came in the middle of the pack for kind of opposite reasons of the White Sox. The Guardians have a really robust farm system, among one of the better ones in the league.
And a long track record of restocking that farm system via player development.
Yes, exactly. And like a really good history of turning those guys into stars, right? They have had that real star power over the last few years in guys like Jose Ramirez, Francisco Lindor, Shane Bieber.
Who does he play for now?
Well, their aesthetics to me are something that don't jump off the page. I think the jerseys are a little bland.
Red and blue. I mean,
like red and blue is already a strike against you for like half of these teams, and this is one of the few stadiums that neither of us have been to. Also, so we can't speak to that specific
White Sox
experience.
as well, actually.
Yeah.
Can you tell we haven't spent a lot of time in the Midwestern part of the United States?
Right.
Although I actually weirdly have, but only in one specific part of the Midwest. So
right.
That's unrelated. I'll talk about that when we get there.
So things like their broadcast booth and stadium experience ranked a little less lower just from kind of my top level familiarity with them and the bit of research I've done. Not exactly a stand-up ownership group either. I think you might find that to be true of many of these teams. But if I'm looking for someone who's going to invest long-term, I'm not sure we're going to find them with the Dolans. They're too busy bankrolling political campaigns, congressional campaigns around the country.
Here's what I wrote for how they made their money in our least terrible owners notes from the episode that we did with Cespedes Family Barbecue. In 2000, Larry Dolan purchased the Cleveland Guardians baseball team. Upon his father taking control of the team, Paul Dolan was hired as vice president and general counsel. In 2004, Dolan was promoted to team president, and in 2011, promoted again to CEO/chairman. This is basically bigger fail son gets the Cleveland team, while the other fail son gets the New York teams. His brother James Dolan, Jim Dolan and the Straight Shots is the name of his band. If you want to check them out, they're not good. He owns Madison Square Garden as well as the Rangers and the Knicks. So when you have the bigger fail son of that family, it's not exactly exciting ownership. And I have to say, from my perspective, they fail the pass fail of ownership conduct, seeing as it took them so long to change the name, and they were really not on the cutting edge when it came to that. They've been known to sell the team for parts when it suits them.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it looks like the Guardians are not making it through to the next round of consideration.
Okay, next up, Detroit Tigers, owned and controlled by Chris Ilitch, son of Mike Ilitch, a notable owner in baseball history. Kind of one of the more revered owners in baseball history, as someone who spent and invested a lot of money in building good baseball teams and got close multiple times. Notable players currently on the roster: Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Matt Manning, and Tarek Skubal, the two-headed Tigers pitching prospect of a few years back, who have not quite panned out how they were hoping, but have shown some signs of life in the major leagues.
That's combined no-hitter Matt Manning to you.
That's true. Did that push them over the top? So you're going to choose them?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Top 100 prospects in their system who have not debuted yet: Colt Keith, Wilmer Flores, not that Wilmer Flores, and Reese Olson. We did not get a pitch from the Tipping Pitches listeners for the Detroit Tigers. So, Alex, I turn it to you. Let's put them to the test.
So, I mean, no disrespect to any Tigers fans listening to this right now. Tigers did not fare so well. They did come in last in my rubric.
Wow. Shocking moment on the pod. The Tigers came in last.
Yeah. And so again, they have little to no farm system to speak of, little to no recent success to speak of.
Wow.
Again,
he's taking you out behind the woodshed right now, Tigers fans.
Star power.
Yeah,
look, I'm
that
being honest.
roster is kind of brutal.
That was
kind of brutal.
Who was the first one you said?
Riley Green. Former top prospect.
Okay. Real star. Spencer Torkelson.
He hits the ball hard when he does hit it.
Right.
And when he's not hurt.
Was thought of as being a big star at one point. Still could get there.
Yeah, sure.
Baseball development. I'm hedging my bets on number one picks from like 4 or 5 years ago.
Baseball development is not linear, Alex. I've said it many times on the podcast. Yeah, there's just not a lot in the near-term future to look forward to, unfortunately. And it seems like they were a team. I mean, they were a team with a plan, and that plan didn't turn out. And I kind of don't really know why. All of their prospects were seemingly hot up until AAA, and then kind of none of them panned out in the majors yet. I mean, we're talking about this very doom and gloom. There's a chance that they just like draft extremely well over the next 5 years and turn into a good team, because though they will not spend with the top of the league, they will spend with sort of the top third of the league. So, they'll give out big free agency deals when they feel like it's a guy that suits them. Unfortunately, the last guy they felt that suited them was Javier Baez, who has been a negative WAR player since they signed him. So that was a mistake. It just feels like a team without a clear vision, and it's tough to choose that. I do think they passed the ownership test.
Yeah, I think they do as well. And they recently just,
in comparison to the rest of the league,
right? They have a new GM in there, Scott Harris, who was inheriting a bit of a mess on all fronts. So I don't want to count them out in the future, right?
What say you about their uniforms?
I don't know if it's a hot take, but I'm not super high on them. I gave them a 4 out of 10 on uniform design. A lot of people like them. There's a lot of really, they do have a really classic look about them. The D is very regal. I like when they incorporate the tiger. It's missing the it factor for me, man.
Interesting. I don't want to slander Dan Dickerson, who is their current announcer, who has been doing it for 21 years. Honestly, don't know much about him.
Nope.
Haven't spent a lot of time watching his broadcasts. So, Tigers, dead last. That's, I think, surprising to me.
And I will say, obviously, this, there was a hard and fast sort of quote unquote ranking in this spreadsheet, just due to the fact that I can order things in descending order. No shade to the Tigers or Tigers fans. Yeah. You're doing your best. As you mentioned, one of the franchises I'd probably feel better about rooting for morally, all things considered.
Another one of the stadiums that we have not been to as well.
Uh-huh.
Although the vibe, and we discussed this on our podcast episode about the ideal baseball stadium, but the vibe is that the last stadium was much better. Right. So that's like not really a point in their favor either. Okay, Kansas City Royals, owned by propane lord John Sherman, owner of Energy LP, the fourth largest distributor of propane in the United States. Notable players on the Kansas City Royals, Alex. Bobby Witt Jr., Brady Singer. I suppose you could say Zach Greinke, though I don't know how much longer he will be on the Kansas City Royals, so I did not list him. Top 100 prospects who have not made the majors. There are none. And nobody called in to make the case for the Kansas City Royals. Though I know that we do have some Kansas City Royals fans in the Tipping Pitches community who still feel strongly about their Royals.
Mm-hmm.
How'd they do? I think I have a feeling, but how did they do?
The Royals are such an interesting team, man. I feel like no matter how you judge them, they're the team that like never looks quite as good on paper as they actually do on that. They're like a real baseball team, you know? So
the whole is greater than the sum of their parts.
Right, exactly. Like they ranked in terms of the overall sort of scoring, they ranked in the bottom third overall, top third in aesthetics, right? Beautiful stadium. I think they have some of the most gorgeous jerseys in the league as well.
Interesting that you like the Royals jerseys and not the Tigers jerseys. I consider them similarly classic and simple. I agree that I like the Royals jerseys better, though.
Yeah, I mean, I like the royal blue. I also, I mean, so thinking about like individuals, just right, like the powder blues feel very iconic to me.
Is there too much powder blue in Major League Baseball right now?
Yes.
We got a question about this.
Yes.
Okay, great. Glad that we've weighed in.
Texas Rangers? What? No, you're not a powder blue team.
It feels a smidge like Stolen Valor.
Yeah. I don't know. Royals have been rocking them.
I agree.
Quite a few decades.
I agree. Same with the Phils.
Mm-hmm.
The Fightins.
We're
going to get to them. You better believe it.
We will get to them. So yeah, in terms of like the recent success and the star power, it's a little middling, but like they
won the World Series in 2015.
Yes, I know.
Actually, they didn't. That didn't happen.
They're a team who always feels like on the cusp of like something. I'm like, well, if you squint, you spend a little money.
They feel like ready to pull a rabbit out of the hat, but you just don't know what the rabbit is going to look like, and you don't know where the hat is at the moment.
Right, and I'm not sure I want to bank the next 60 years of my life on that. So
you're committing to 60 years. So 162 games a year, 60 years where you run on the field at least once per year. That is your commitment so far?
Right.
Those
and
just
I'm
for everyone
wearing the jersey all day.
Okay, right. Just for everyone keeping track at home. Okay, Royals Capuzzo. Minnesota Twins, owned by the Pohlad family. Back the Blue Pohlad family. One of the only families to donate to the Democratic Party.
Oh, that kind of Back the Blue. I was like, what?
Blue Wave Pohlads.
There you go.
Big Biden heads.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to know what was in the garage in Delaware. They don't want you to know. They're trying to cover that up. Notable players, kind of a lot. Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, Sonny Gray, Pablo Lopez, Joey Gallo. I put him on there because he's handsome and hits large home runs. Royce Lewis and Edouard Julien. Top 100 prospects in their system who have not yet debuted. Brooks Lee. We do have a voicemail in favor of the Minnesota Twins. Let me play that for you before you weigh in.
Hey guys, it's Isaac, resident Twins fan over here. Like to make a pitch for Alex for new team to root for. You love that heartbreak every season, the inevitability of wanting to do well and ultimately never doing well. Come on over to Minnesota Twins territory, where we have a long-standing tradition of either losing 100 games or making the playoffs only to lose to the Yankees every single year. Seriously, think about it. We might not necessarily be the poverty franchise that the Oakland A's claims to be, but a lot of similar vibes over here. Just for your consideration, Alex. Sorry about the Oakland A's. All right, bye.
I like the different approaches that our listeners are taking.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, some of our listeners are trying to be like, come as far away from the A's as possible. And some of our listeners are trying to be like, this will feel familiar for you,
right.
but slightly better.
Oh, losing to the Yankees in the playoffs? Yes, I'll fit right in.
Like a glove, baby, like a glove. Okay. Thank you, Isaac, for calling in and making that pitch. It was very nicely delivered. I appreciated it. How did the Twins fare?
Twins fared okay. So they're kind of squarely in the middle of the pack, just outside the top.
Look at you,
15.
Pelosi shill that you are. Just trying to keep Adam Schiff in the Senate. Shameful.
Can't do it. We can't do it.
45 minutes of sleep.
They're the sort of team that like didn't have a single category that really jumped off the page. But again, they got some prospects. I feel like when you think about the Twins, they don't scream star power, but you started reading some of those names, and I was like, those are some very good players. I will sign myself up for watching some of that. So they're a team that scored for me slightly higher in the quality of baseball than the aesthetics of the team, although they were very similar. Once again, tipping our hand, this is another stadium that we have not visited. We're just getting them all out of the way.
If Dow Chemicals wants to sponsor our trip around the Major League Baseball stadiums of the Midwest, we're open to it. Okay, we will take back everything we've ever said about Agent Orange on this podcast, which is a lot. I think I don't remember. I don't know. Maybe not. A podcast about the healthy side effects of Agent Orange.
Right. Here's what Monsanto means for you. Yeah,
It sounds like they're not a cross off yet. Sounds like they're in contention.
They're not out of contention yet. Yeah.
Much like the AL Central in 2023, they are middling but still in it.
Just kind of like you never really know.
Okay. National League Central. We move on to the Chicago Cubs, owned by the lovely, the friendly, the warm Ricketts family. Notable players: Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner, who's like fucking amazing this year. Cody Bellinger, Ian Happ, Marcus Stroman, Kyle Hendricks. Top 100 prospects who have not yet debuted: Pete Crow Armstrong, that hurts to read, Kevin Alcantara, Hayden Wesneski, and Christian Hernandez. We have 3 voicemails in support of the Chicago Cubs. Would you like to play all 3 back to back, or would you like me to play one, you chat a little, I play another, we chat a little, and then you play the last?
Let's chat. Let's give each voicemail a little bit of time to breathe.
Okay, here is our first call.
Hi, Bobby and Alex. Long-time listener, first-time caller. This is my condensed pitch for why you should become a Cubs fan. I know those weren't the words you wanted to hear, but I'll go through a couple points. Players, currently kind of a new crop, but a couple with promise. Dansby's raking. Morel is showing flashes of brilliance like vintage, emphasis on the vintage Javi Baez. Stroman is reinventing himself, and there's a rarity. We've got a halfway competent bullpen for the past year or so. Stadium, I've totally got Homer goggles on, but I still haven't been to a ballpark like Wrigley. You can take the train right there, or bus, or walk, or bike, because there's no parking lot. They just got rid of the piss troughs, and I hear the food is getting better. It's the national landmark for a reason. And here's another thing. They will never leave Chicago. When the climate refugees flock to the Great Lakes, you'll want to say you were a fan before they were huge. But above all, I know that you crave content. Complaining about Cubs ownership is a rite of passage. I grew up in the Feast or Famine Tribune Company years, and here we are in the Feast or Famine Ricketts years. Stroman, he's always doing something weird on social media. Jesus Christ, all the land use debates that inevitably fall in ownership's favor. Tickets are expensive everywhere nowadays, so there are fewer loonies at the park, but damn if the Cubs don't have some of the best loonies. And here's the best part. There really isn't pressure to win, because the self-flagellation that is Cubs fandom is outweighed by the desire to get pissed drunk and just enjoy a beautiful day at the ballpark. In the years that they suck, they become the Scrub-a-Dubs, a team staffed by replacement-level guys that the hometown still rallies behind until they're good again. It'll be like you never left Oakland.
Put that call in the Tipping Pitches Caller Hall of Fame. That was great.
Hit all the marks.
He really went straight for your soul there, saying it doesn't matter if they're good. You can just get pissed drunk at the ballpark and enjoy the game. He reached straight through your chest.
Oh, I should have noted. I am looking for. So the A's notably have piss troughs. So I am looking for that in my next team.
Oh, you are. So you're a pro piss trough guy,
right? Yeah.
Right, okay.
I like to get cozy.
You've spent quite a bit of time at Wrigley Field over the years. Does that factor in here for you?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I can certainly speak to personal experiences a bit more. So,
does the long-term health of your romantic relationships skew this rubric at all?
Right. I've been pitched to be a Cubs fan for like 7 years now.
Right.
So
exactly. And you were counting back right there. It's like, what anniversary do we have right now? Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about some of your other categories then before we play another voicemail. Team performance, player likability. Where are they weighing in here?
Yeah. I mean, on the rubric, they fared pretty well across the board. Again, recent success. They've known to win here and there over the last few years. Emphasis on recent success. They do have an actual roster of decent prospects who are on the way. The star power is a little more middling without that sort of core that led them to their World Series championship a few years ago. But I did play baseball against Nico Horner, so that one I get to pull that one out every time I go to.
How did you fare against Nico?
Not well.
Not well?
No.
What were you doing and what was he doing?
He was pitching. I was sitting on the bench.
Oh no. That's not great. Does that make you more or less likely to want to root for them? Because I'll come out and say it. One time I was around the rim. I did not get dunked on, but I was near the rim, close enough to be in a highlight reel for a player who went on to play college basketball at Syracuse. And I'll just say I didn't root for Syracuse after that experience.
See, me, I'm like with a baseball team or a player or whatever. I'm like, well, if you're gonna beat me, you got to go beat everyone now. It's like that. Go now. Go win it.
Notable that the Cubs, they did build a great core that won a World Series in 2016. So they showed that they could do it, and then they promptly were like, "We're done doing that."
Yeah,
they traded all those players, so they do have the appetite for behavior like that, led primarily by the Ricketts, which leads us to our next voicemail, in support of the Cubs.
How's it going, guys? So I'd officially like to nominate the Chicago Cubs to be Alex's new favorite team. You talked about it a little bit in the episode. Number one reason, Wrigley. It's a beautiful place to watch a game. It's green. I know the team doesn't wear green, but that's kind of close to the Oakland Athletics. But the real reason why I think you would like being a Cubs fan, or at least maybe, Bobby, you'd like him being a Cubs fan, is the content. Because we've got one of the most content-filled owners in the game with Tom Ricketts. Corporate development of a historic ballpark and neighborhood? Check. Sportsbook in the stadium? Check. His brother is governor of Nebraska, Pete Ricketts? Check. And maybe once in a while, he'll trade away some of your favorite guys, maybe all in one fire sale. He'll make you feel right at home, make you feel like you never left the Athletics. Let me know what you think. Regardless, we'll welcome you back to the friendly confines anytime. Have a good one.
Cubs fans are so nice.
I know.
I would not be talking like that about the Mets if I was doing one of these voicemails. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't.
You're telling me the Wilpons didn't just create good content for you?
They created some kind of content.
Right. Discontent.
Many of it was not recorded, and I think that my life and career is better off for it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great pitch.
Yeah.
Because you can't just become like a fan of a team that's going to make it unfun for us to talk about.
I know. We
do have to think about the content here. That is imperative for us.
Yeah, maybe a no oversight on my part. Well, not an oversight. I was thinking about, team conduct and investment as a sort of a positive or negative for in choosing a team. But, the worse the owner is, the more we get to talk about it. So all of a sudden, crimes.xlsx
looking a little juicy.
Teams kind of rising in the power rankings.
You want to download that one and work offline, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, final voicemail in favor of the Cubs.
Hey, fellas, it's Nikki. Alex, I'm here on behalf of the Chicago Cubs fan base to tell you to become a Cubs fan. You're looking for a new team? Cubs, why not? You mentioned jerseys. Well, we got, red, white, and blue. That's kind of boring. Okay, well, forget about that. Well, the players, we got some good guys. We got Patrick Wisdom, Nico Horner, Ian Happ, who are probably all going to be, sold at the deadline, if things continue. Okay, well, what about the owners? The owners are, Republican ghouls. What was the question again? Oh, right, Alex, you need a new team, right? So here I am. I'm here to suggest the Seattle Mariners.
That one was kind of a misdirection, but I couldn't decide where to play it because it was mostly about the Cubs.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like the Cubs are still in contention for you then. They're like close enough that we can't cross them off yet.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, like they're one of the few teams that like feel too obvious, right? They're one of like the baseball teams.
That they are. I've always said that about the Cubs.
They're one of the ones.
Someone says Chicago Cubs. You know what I say? Baseball team.
Baseball team.
When I say Chicago Cubs, you say baseball team. Chicago Cubs. Baseball team.
Not ruled out yet.
Okay, great. Next up, Cincinnati Reds. We got to move. Owner, play the song, baby.
He's got carrots and lettuce and mushrooms, porcini. The vegetable king, Bob Castellini.
Bob Castellini. Notable players. Just a very notable player who has hit the scene recently. His name is Ellie De La Cruz. You heard of him? Jonathan India, Matt McClain, another top prospect. Alexis Diaz. You know, I didn't put a lot of relievers on here, but I have to say, when it's Edwin Diaz's brother and he's doing what he's doing this year, notable. Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, and Spencer Steer, who, you know, not quite notable yet, but another top prospect. Top 100 prospects who have not debuted yet: Edwin Arroyo, Cam Collier, and Noel V. Marte, the return from the Luis Castillo trade. Shortstop. You flirted with the Reds in the past. I have to say that. That was when they were trying.
Yeah.
That was when they had former Oakland Athletics Sonny Gray on the team. It was when, you know, I didn't name Joey Votto in notable players. This is kind of like, it kind of falls in the Zach Greinke zone of like, he's not going to be that notable for that long. He will, you know, he'll be an emeritus notable player, but he won't really be on the team contributing for that many more years.
Right.
Although maybe that's slanderous. Maybe Joey Votto will play until he's 45 and he'll be great. So that's definitely not a point against the Reds. So yeah, a few years back, you were considering the Reds as kind of your alternate team. I don't know if you actually like landed on them in our little game that we played for the alternate team, but
no, it was the Twins. Remember? I was
oh right,
it was a Twins
fan.
fan.
For sure. I definitely remember that. We definitely followed through on that segment. So the Reds in 2023, in, out,
Reds
up, down, left, right.
Another team that like
carrots, onions, mushrooms.
That like doesn't necessarily fare well on paper, so to speak, but when I look at them,
artichokes, tomatoes.
I only team whose owner has their own jingle.
Potatoes.
Only one.
Leeks.
We'd get to play the jingle every single week.
Beans, fruits, everything you could need from a wholesale vegetable.
Fruits, not fruits.
He doesn't have fruits.
I assumed it's a vegetable empire, right?
We've always kind of said it as that, but you have to think that maybe he's hawking some strawberries or something along the way. Like, where's the money in potatoes? There's potatoes everywhere.
It is a fruit and vegetable wholesaler.
Okay, great.
It would feel weird to draw the line.
Blueberries,
like corn,
bananas, corn. I didn't even name. Great. I wasn't listening to anything you were saying. Are you considering the Reds?
You know, I am. Like they're a team that I do feel very drawn to. I've never been to the stadium, but you've had a very good experience there, I think.
Great American Ballpark. Unfortunately, it's not just named Great American Ballpark because it is a Great American Ballpark. It's named that for a bank, insurance company, I think. Alas, it's right on the Ohio River. It's pretty nice. It's not top 5, but it's definitely not bottom 5. Smack in the middle of downtown Cincinnati, which, again, yes, is, as you alluded to, the place in the Midwest that I have spent a disproportionate amount of time, similar to you with Chicago.
Right.
Good place to see a game.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Would recommend.
Close enough that you could drive to see the Florence Yalls, the independent baseball team as well.
Big.
If you moved to Cincinnati, if you were
Right.
considering that. I don't know if you were. I would have hoped you would have told me by now. We do a podcast together. We do own a business together. Yeah. So all in all, I think a point in the Reds' favor rather than a point against them.
Yeah. Well, and they're also one of these teams that, again, is in this weird middle ground where, like, we couldn't drive there. I mean, we could, but it would probably be ill-advised. But we also wouldn't.
No, that's the American dream right there.
But
why spend 3 hours on a train when you could spend 12 hours in a car?
That is actually really true.
Nobody talks about that.
I think the star power, the sort of budding star power here does weigh really heavily, right? You mentioned guys like Ellie De La Cruz. Hunter Green is another one who comes to mind, who is just electric to watch out there when he's throwing it in the zone. So not ruled out yet. They came in on the lower side of my rubric, but I'm making the executive decision to bump them up a few points to keep them in contention.
Okay, great. Next up, Milwaukee Brewers. Got to keep us moving. Owner, Mark Attanasio. Notable players, Christian Yelich, William Contreras, Willie Adames, Corbin Burns, Wade Miley, Freddie Peralta, Bryce Terang, and Joey Weimer?
Yep.
Weimer.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's the guy. Top 100 prospects, Jackson Chourio and Sal Frelick. Some tough names on this one. We did get a listener email in favor of the Milwaukee Brewers. I will read a highlight from that because it's a rather long email. The Milwaukee Brewers, also known as Alex Baisley's next favorite team, the rebranding the Brewers went through before the cursed 2020 season brought back one of the best logos in MLB, the M&B ball and glove logo. Color combo of blue, yellow, and white, and cream mix pulling together game day fits a piece of cake. I dare I say I agree with that. Some people will say the City Connect uniforms are garbage, but almost all Brewers fans I talk to love them. They found a way to put beer on the uniform. Important. Seriously, the bottom seam of the sleeve is yellow with a white top, just like the top of a glass of beer. The Brewers' performance can go in waves. Sometimes they look like the best team in baseball. Other times they get swept by Alex's former team. You never know which team is going to show up, but no matter what, they are fun to watch. As one of the best defensive teams in the league, you can almost guarantee a highlight level play every night, even if national media will never actually highlight it because Brewers don't get clicks. Wow. Calling out the national media. That's a compelling case. I like it. Apologies to Chad who wrote this email in, but we don't have time to read all of this here. He notes the hang up of owner Mark Attanasio, who's done a great job making himself money while also bringing the Brewers into a couple of nice playoff windows. But he is a big fan of crying poor. We've talked about this in the past. I believe Jake and Jordan selected Mark Attanasio for least terrible owners, and we kind of ripped into them a little bit for that selection. So a little bit of a mixed bag there. Chad closes it out by saying, the owner can get in the way sometimes, but you cannot jump from a guy like John Fisher to a perfect owner. You will simply go into shock. Compelling case. The Brewers. Yay or nay? Where did they rank?
Yeah, that was a compelling case for them. They fell just outside the top 10 for me. They really, like, in terms of success, they have had a good period of, if not sustained success, kind of like hanging around. As an A's fan, I'm very familiar with just like hanging around,
throwing your hat in the ring
and seeing what happens.
Right.
They have some real star power on that team, as well as a pretty formidable farm system. I also feel like the culture around the fan base is pretty good. I say with nothing to go off of, it just kind of seems like they're all having a good time.
Yeah, they have a slide in the outfield.
They got a slide. I love a slide in the outfield. Slide that can break bones. Apparently,
they're drinking beer. They're eating cheese curds. You know?
Yeah, keep going.
Good vibes only. I've never been to that stadium. I don't believe you have ever been to that stadium either. But it seems pretty good.
Yeah, and the point about color coordination, really key. Also, hard sometimes to coordinate colors with MLB jerseys. It's a little hard to coordinate bright red and blue into your fit. So I can appreciate some muted yellows and creams and navy blues.
A color scheme for the everyday simple man or woman or gender non-conforming person.
Yeah.
In the interest of time, would you like to keep the Brewers in contention, or would you like to cross them off at this juncture? They were outside of your top 10. Let me remind you.
Let's cross them off.
You're too nice. Feeling. You're too nice. You're afraid of offending. You're just being too much of a snowflake. You have the power, now wield it, Mr. Biden. Pittsburgh Pirates owner Bob Nutting. Notable players: Jack Suwinski, best player on the Pirates this year. Jack Suwinski. Brian Reynolds, who they just signed to an extension, I think to everybody's surprise. Franchise legend Andrew McCutchen. Key Brian Hayes, who can't hit a baseball but is very, very good on defense. Mitch Keller, Henry Davis, their top prospect, their first overall pick from a couple of years ago, and Luis Ortiz, top 100 prospects who have not yet made the majors.
O'Neill Cruz shade.
I missed him because he's out this year with an injury.
Yeah.
Listen, again, 45 minutes of sleep. Please do not be the person who inboxes me. Top 100 prospects, Tremar Johnson, who was our top pick last year, a couple years ago, and Endy Rodriguez. We have no pitches from the Tipping Pitches listeners in favor of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So it's all on you. Yay or nay? Where did they fare?
They came in right above the Brewers in the ranking.
Wow. Shocker. Tigers dead last. Pirates top 10.
Pirates
owned by Bob Nutting. Top 10.
Again, there was a bit of rankers' discretion in some of these. I love their jerseys, man. I feel like maybe they're really divisive to some people.
No, they're good.
They're just flat out good.
Great ballpark.
Once again, I love a good jersey that can actually incorporate black and like do it well. As you mentioned, ballpark. This is a ballpark I have not been to, but you have been to
recently.
Pretty good ballpark, as I hear.
I had a Yingling. I had a good time.
Yeah, that's hell yeah.
I walked over a bridge to get there. I love a bridge.
I love a good bridge.
Love to walk to a stadium.
Yeah, they don't do so well in the recent success category, but in terms of like,
do they do well in the past success category or the future success category?
Should I say future?
No. I'm wondering.
Oh.
You said they don't do well in recent. They've never really been that good.
Right.
Not since like Honus Wagner.
Right.
Or I guess Barry Bonds. Those are the two high points.
Yeah, but they like have real prospects. They do have like an actual farm system and like
a vote for the Pirates. Let me just say this to you. A vote selecting the Pirates would be the belief that Bob Nutting won't fuck this up.
Right.
Do you believe that Bob Nutting won't fuck this up?
They're like always a prospective team. I feel like every year I go in being like, hey, the Pirates maybe. No. Doesn't happen.
Next up, St. Louis Cardinals.
There it is. And the pod. Here we go.
Owner Bill DeWitt Jr. Notable players. Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado. You might have heard of those two guys. Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, Wilson Contreras, Jordan Montgomery, Jack Flaherty, Ryan Helsley, Dylan Carlson, and top prospect who debuted this season, Jordan Walker. Top 100 prospects on Fangraphs.com who have not yet made the majors. Mason Wynn. Mason, that's Masyn. Mason. Gordon Graceffo and Tink Hence. 3 names of 3 people who are very much real, according to Fangraphs, who I have never verified their reality. Alex, St. Louis Cardinals. Just tell me yes or no. Just let's not drag this out.
No, I can't do it. I can't do it to you. I can't do it to myself. Even though they fared well on the rubric. Again, this is a team that like looks good on paper. Vibes are off.
This is one of those things where if your rubric turns out a high score for this team, you really got to reassess.
Exactly.
You really got to reassess where you're at.
Yeah.
Okay, here comes a heavy hitter. The American League East. First up, Baltimore Orioles. They are owned by the Angelos family. Notable players. Let me just take a deep breath before this one. Adley, Rutschman, Austin Hayes, Gunnar Henderson, Anthony Santander, Cedric Mullins, Jordan Westberg, Colton Cowser, Kyle Bradish, not really sure. Heard it pronounced both ways. Grayson Rodriguez, Felix Bautista, DL Hall, and Joey Ortiz. Top 100 prospect. Oh, I guess I should say John Means as well. He's out with Tommy John surgery, but Jake Mintz would have my head if I did not say John Means. Top 100 prospects who have not yet debuted. The best prospect in baseball, Jackson Holliday and Kobe Mayo. We have 3 separate pitches from the Tipping Pitches listeners. Would you like me to start by reading one of them?
Please.
This comes from Vincent. Here's my pitch for why Alex should root for the Orioles. The parallels run deep to the Oakland Athletics. Uniform, orange, black, white, and gray. Not red, white, and blue bullshit. Logo is an actual cartoon and not a letter. And the City Connect is meh, but in the context of the best City Connect, it's fine. The players, for better or worse, the grift actually may have paid off. Vincent mentions that they need to win it all and spend, but the tank did lead to Adley and Gunnar and all of those other players that I already named. Historically, they haven't won it all since '83, so it'd be a good time to get on the bandwagon now and see their first win since the 1980s. It'll feel that much better. And the final 2 points here that Vincent mentions, which I will summarize. The first is Mike Elias, who seems to be a man with a plan. You might not agree with the methods of that plan. You might not agree with the early stage process of that plan, but it's at this point kind of hard to deny the results of Orioles player development. I feel good that the Orioles can turn minor league hitters into major league hitters. I feel pretty confident about that. And then the other thing that Vincent mentions here is John Angelos, who is the control person of the Baltimore Orioles right now. Vincent mentions that he needs you to be a fan just so that we can talk more about the Orioles, and that John Angelos is considering running for Senate at the moment. So
what?
I haven't heard that before, but I believe it. So that's a point in the content bucket. Alex, what say you about the much hyped Baltimore Orioles?
Feel pretty good about them is the thing. A little unfair because I felt a little good about them going in. Also a little unfair because how could you look at that team and not like feel like rooting for them right now? Like the vibes are great. Did you see Adley in the home run derby? Like, bro, come on.
Switch hitting.
Come on.
Yeah.
Okay. And then getting bounced immediately.
Second best young catcher in baseball, right?
Like the future's behind Alvarez.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Yeah, the Orioles score really well pretty much everywhere outside of recent success. And even in that regard, like they haven't been god awful in the last 5 or 6 years. I think
Hang on. Yes, they have. They were the worst team in baseball for like 3 of the last 5 years.
I thought it was longer than that.
They were good they were okay for the last 2. But before that, they were like over 100 losses.
I should have trusted. The formula gave him a 2 out of 5 in recent success. So
not great. But I mean, as Vincent noted, you might disagree with the methods of the grift, but it seems to have paid off.
Exactly.
Because of our broken systems.
One of the most beautiful ballparks in the game right now. The aesthetics of the jersey are incredibly pleasing. John Angelos is a 12-year-old boy in a 50-year-old man's body, and I would love to watch him every single day. Everything he does.
Yeah, you got to hand it to him.
He's the kind of guy
who knows how to spin a quote.
He's the kind of guy who, like, I think when he goes to the bathroom, you know, he like when he's like using a urinal, he like pulls his pants all the way down to the ground.
That's a funny image, except he's never used a urinal in his life. So the man was born as a billionaire. Like, what are we talking about?
Well, maybe he needs to.
I agree. Maybe he needs to try out a trough.
You know?
Another email from listener Eric in support of the Orioles. The feeling around the city and the yard is electric. Get on the bandwagon now before it's too late. He's saying they don't need you. You should want it. You should want to apply to be on the bandwagon. These guys are truly a team. The younger guys, Gunnar, Westy, Ortiz, Cowser, and of course Adley. Adley's going to lead this franchise for 10 years. I believe it. I believe it. The outlook, don't tell anyone, but we'll be World Series champs in 2024 and or 2025. Elias has already made all the right moves, and he isn't nearly done. There is no more logical choice than the Orioles. If you don't pick them, I'll still listen to your podcast, but I'll start taking Manfred's side on some issues. Great show, guys. Keep it up. Thank you, Eric. That's a wonderful sentiment. I just want to point out that Alex often takes Rob Manfred's side.
That's true.
You guys are already on the same side. DH, sure. Pitch clock, sure. Ban the shift, sure. Whatever.
Why not?
Whatever you need to do, Rob.
Yeah.
Do your thing, Rob. Clean up the game.
Hey, man, I don't know if you've been watching the first half of the season, but baseball is in as good a spot as it's ever been. And I actually have a column for you that will prove every single one of those points whenever you're ready. Just don't look at the byline.
Final pitch from our listeners on the Baltimore Orioles. Alex should root for the Orioles because he'd get to watch/listen to the color commentary of Jim Palmer, who, aside from being a Hall of Fame pitcher with funny insights, is also the absolute GOAT at name dropping. Palmer used a Yes camera operator having his orbital bone shattered by an errant Gunnar Henderson throw to shoehorn in that he knows a producer at the Yes Network who also does work for NBC Sports. This is very hard to follow, and is in fact not even at the game today because he's at Pebble Beach working the Women's US Open. Just needed everyone to know he's friends with a decently connected sports producer. Love him. It's very niche, but it's very funny.
The Vin Scully of mid-tier TV executives.
So I was having lunch with this guy who's he's an AP for NBC Sports covering the Women's LPGA Tour.
So Time Warner Channel.
The Orioles are obviously in contention. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
Boston Red Sox owner John Henry, Lima Bean Futures. Notable players: Jarren Duran. Duran?
Mm-hmm.
You just hate when you do this. Alex Verdugo, Rafael Devers, Masataka Yoshida, Brian Bayo. James Paxton. He's just having a good year. He's not really going to be factored into the long-term future of the Boston Red Sox, but that's okay. Chris Sale and Tristan Casas. Top 100 prospects. Big old prospect in Marcelo Mayer, Miguel Bleis, and Sedan Rafaela. We did get one call in support of the heinous, evil, awful Boston Red Sox. This call comes from beloved member of the Tipping Pitches community, Sam.
Hey guys, first time, long time, and all that. This is Sam from the Slack. That's Sam Red Sox fan, not Sam Cardinals fan or Sam Dodgers fan, because we've got a few. I was also the one referenced on yesterday's episode who said Bobby better learn how to pronounce Brian Bayo's name in time for the Cy Young ceremony, which I stand by. But I wanted to get in my Alex's new team voicemail under the wire. And, you know, I thought about calling in and doing like a bit where I pretended it was like November 2018 and everything was great. Like, we're going to give Mookie Betts $400 million. And, you know, the prospect of that kind of bummed me out. So I'm going to try my best to make an earnest plea. And I think our best case is probably proximity. You know, Alex talked about not wanting to root for a team that's far away. And I think an AL East team is where you got to go. You're in New York for games at Yankee Stadium and a reasonable drive to both Boston and Baltimore. So that, I think, gives you maximum opportunity to see your new team, which is going to be the Red Sox. And John Henry, you know, what do you want to say? If you want LeBron to be a minority owner of your new team and possibly also have stake in the Las Vegas NBA franchise, Sox. Bye. I'll hang up and listen.
There's your case. How'd the Red Sox fare? I feel like on paper, the Red Sox have a lot of things going for them.
The Red Sox are a team who I think, like, in my mind, I would have thought fared better on paper and who ended up right in the middle of the pack around the Twins and the Brewers. People have really divided opinions, I think, on the Red Sox broadcast booth of Dave O'Brien and Kevin Youkilis. I really like Dennis Eckersley, who left the booth recently. So the jury might still be out on them. I don't know. Again, nothing that jumps off the page at me. It screams. I mean, I appreciated the impassioned pitch. A little tough when the biggest part of the pitch is
it's not 2018. They're kind of close by.
You can hop on a train.
You know who is closer is our next team. We're throwing the Red Sox out. You know who's closer? Our next team, the New York Yankees.
Oh boy.
Owned by Hal Steinbrenner. Notable players: Aaron Judge, Anthony Volpe, Anthony Rizzo, Gleyber Torres, Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Luis Severino, Nestor Cortez, and Oswald Peraza. Top 100 prospects who have yet to debut. The greatest player of all time, Jason Dominguez. Notable that the cowardly Yankees fans did not even bother to call and make their pitch. You know why? Because they think they're better than us. They think I know that there's.
Yeah, they think we should be calling them.
Cadre of Yankees fans in the Tipping Pitches, a Yankees podcast community. So interesting. Their silence is deafening. Are you considering the Yankees?
I don't feel in good conscience as though it's an idea I can entertain, especially having rooted for the Mets for so long at this point. Like, it'd feel a little weird to just like jump across the bridge. They did well in the rubric, right? They've got the star power. The stadium experience, the stadium itself, I like don't love that much, but I also think seeing a baseball game there is like really fun, unfortunately.
I'm just going to come right out and say it. You're not allowed to be a Yankees fan. You're not allowed.
I know.
Joining the Yankees bandwagon at this point seems like both the most boring possible move and also like the least validating somehow of this entire process. Like putting every team through this rubric and then just choosing the Yankees just feels like a waste of time.
What was the point of that? Also, can I just say, hey, pinstripe jerseys, get a new beat.
Oh, wow. wow. So wait. Oh, no. I just need to let that breathe. Actually, I'm not even going to step on that. We're just going to move on. Tampa Bay Rays owned by Stuart, also known as Stu Sternberg. Notable players, Wander Franco. God damn it, he is good. Randy Arozarena, Isaac Paredes, Shane McClanahan, Drew Rasmussen, Tyler Glasnow. Glasnow? Brandon Lau? Not Brandon Lowe. Taj Bradley, a top prospect who has a 5.4 ERA this year, but that's okay because he's only pitched a few innings. And most Rays prospects turn out to be good. Top 100 prospects who have not yet debuted, Curtis Mead, Kyle Manzardo, and Carson Williams. We got one call in favor of the Tampa Bay Rays. I will play that for you now.
I have a pitch for Alex's next team. Listen, I think hating your own team and hating the office is in Alex's bones. He needs a team that has sparks of hope routinely crushed or shaved off by management. He needs a team he won't even be sure he'll be happy if they win a World Series because he doesn't want the current management rewarded. And boy howdy, this Tampa Bay Rays can fit so much self-hatred.
All right, level with me here about the Rays.
No. Come on. I mean, they are the team, right? A few years ago, I would have said that the Mets are probably the team that are like the closest in terms of like kindred spirit, in terms of like agony and getting really close and being the sort of little, being the little sibling in the big market. And now it feels like the Rays have sort of taken that mantle, right? As like the sort of analog to whatever the hell is going on in Oakland of like
Moneyball 5.0 or whatever iteration.
Right,
on.
Exactly. Hey, if I want to root for a team, his shit doesn't work in the playoffs. Oh boy.
Okay, we're not going to reopen this can of worms. Their shit actually kind of does work in the playoffs, but it just falls short sometimes.
So it sounds like it doesn't work.
I love your Rays negging, and I love how little respect we have for Rays worshippers out there.
I also love that like 6 months ago, a year ago, you were all in on the Rays negging. You were like, I will do anything I can to tear this team down. And now you're kind of like, well, but
I just think now that we've talked about half the league already, I'm just kind of like, the Rays are definitely going to win a World Series before basically every other team we've talked about here so far. They've been good recently. They're going to be good for the near future, probably for the long-term future. It's just that they don't really have a lot else going on. They're not close. They're in Florida.
Right. They're like their stadium's not doing anything to call me. Also, I know that like
they might get moved or
they might get moved. They have stars on their team right now.
They might get sold.
How long are they going to be on?
They might trade those stars. Right? Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't feel like a good vibe fit with you. It feels a lot like signing up for the A's again.
Right. It'd be pretty bleak to sign up for the Rays and have them move in 3 or 4 years.
Okay, next up, Toronto Blue Jays. Steve Slidkowski's own Toronto Blue Jays, owned by none other than Rogers Communications. Notable players, Bo Bichette, Matt Chapman, Vlad Guerrero Jr., George Springer, Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, Jordan Romano, and Dalton Varsho. Top 100 prospects who have yet to debut, Ricky Tiedemann and Addison Barger. No one called in support of Canada's very own Toronto Blue Jays. In contention, yes or no? Where do they land?
Another team that's right on the cusp, who like I always really enjoy watching on like a year-to-year basis. I also think they have some of the best jerseys in the league, despite the fact that they are red, white, and blue. I think they use them in slightly more creative ways. I don't have a great argument against them. They're just kind of there.
You just don't have a great argument for them.
Right.
And it just feels like a little bit too much of a hipster thing to do, to just pick the one team in Canada who has great uniforms. It's like, I don't see it. And there's nothing against the Blue Jays. I mean, if I was from Canada or if I was from Toronto, I'd be really happy to root for this team. I don't see it for you.
Yeah, it just feels like a different culture there. And
you can't get with the healthcare thing. I know that about you.
Right. It's true. It's Trudeau, man.
It's Pelosi's vision or nothing for you.
I will say, only one of these teams' heads of state has spoken at our graduation. Just putting it out there.
And that's a point in their favor?
I don't know.
I don't really think so. Okay. Rubber's going to hit the road here. National League East. First up is the Atlanta Braves. Publicly traded Atlanta Braves, owned by Liberty Media. Notable players, Ronald Acuna Jr., brace yourself, Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, Ozzy Albies, Orlando Arcia, Austin Riley, Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton, Max Fried, Michael Harris II, and Travis Darno. Top 100 prospects yet to make the majors. There aren't any. They're all on the team, and they're all fucking good.
Mm-hmm. And they're all going to be on the team for the next 2 decades.
So there's that. Be careful if you pick someone against the Atlanta Braves. I'll just tell you that. I'm experiencing that. It would be boring if I came on here and just said you can't root for these teams because of my own fandom. But like, I actually genuinely think we could not do a podcast together if you were a
Braves fan.
Yeah, I don't think we could podcast together. I still want you to talk about where they ranked on your list based on the different factors that you put through the rubric. But to the extent that you are going to allow me to have a veto, I would use the veto on the Braves above all 29 other teams in Major League Baseball.
That's big.
It's true, is what it is.
Well, I guess it's
I'd rather you root for the World Series winning Rays than root for the Braves, even if they don't win.
Well, I think it's important you make that decision because like they're one of the ones that I feel like would be most in contention. Like if you look at them, if you look at the Braves, you're like, it wouldn't be hard to root for them.
How are they doing on team culture? Do you enjoy spending your free time visiting January 6th protesters? How's your bicep for the chop?
Right. Yes.
You want to get ripped doing the chop?
Yeah. Vibes are pretty bad around that team.
Horrendous.
They scored far lower than I thought they would. They came in at like 18th.
Oh, landing on the Braves. Tail as little as time. All right, I'm going to eliminate them. Let's keep going. Miami Marlins. I would describe this as a team you've flirted with on occasion in the past. Maybe not as becoming one of their fans, but you flirted with their players before. They are owned by none other than art collector Bruce Sherman. Notable players: Luis Ariz, Jazz Chisholm Jr., Jesus Luzardo, Sandy Alcantara, and Yuri Perez, who just got sent down to the minors. Not sure what's going on there. Top 100 prospects: Jake Eder. Jake Adair?
Yeah.
Eder?
Yeah.
Yiddy Cappy. Could be very wrong on both of those pronunciations, but it's okay. No one called in favor of the Marlins. So, Alex, are they in contention?
I don't really think they're in contention, even though I find myself watching more Marlins games than I initially anticipate at the beginning of each year. I just like, what's the plan, guys? What are we doing here? I haven't seen anything in the last decade or so that would suggest they're serious about building and maintaining a successful baseball team. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to get past that one. It's a fine stadium. It's a little cavernous.
It's a bad stadium.
Well, sure.
I'll just come out and say it. Feels like you're in a high school natatorium.
Yeah, I've never been there with the roof open, and I probably never will with the way the Earth's going.
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't have much more to say on it. They tried. They showed up.
Good for them. Next up, it's your New York Mets. Owner. It's the financial crimes guy himself, Steve Cohen. Notable players: Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Alvarez, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Kodai Senga, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Brett Beatty, better known as Brett Baby in the tipping pitches community. Top 100 prospects who have yet to debut: outfielder Alex Ramirez. A lot of power there. We'll see if he can get the bat on the ball. And Ronnie Mauricio. A lot of power there. We'll see if he can get the bat on the ball. We did get a listener pitch from a listener of the show named John. John wants to remind you of the Mets broadcast booth. You're a free agent fan, and you should think long and hard about watching games called by Gary, Keith, and Ron. If he was to make a hard sell on Mets fandom, it would go something like this. The Mets are fun now and are likely to be fun in the future. And by fun, I mean that they generally have more than the regular amount of organizational shenanigans going on and a media environment that won't ever let them live any of it down. When they're bad and underfunded, that is grating. But now that Steve Cohen owns the team, it just kind of adds to the excitement of winning anyway, without subtracting from the underdog energy. Also, there's no substitute for proximity. What say you about the Mets?
All really good points. It feels a little unfair to consider the Mets because I've been like rooting for them alongside you for the last few years. The Mets came in at number 5 overall on my rankings.
Wow.
Here's the thing. They've been pretty good recently, and they got a lot of really good players, and it's pretty fun to see a baseball game there.
And yet they stink this season.
Yet they're bad. Right. The Yankees and the Mets, obviously the only ones who scored perfect 10s on my proximity grade, because I can take the subway, which helps. Although maybe it doesn't help enough to overcome being 10 games under 500.
Yeah, well. So are they still in contention, or are you DQing them because you basically already are a fan of them?
Let's DQ them. I'm not stopping watching the Mets.
A shot across the bow at me.
What are we both going to be Mets fans? Good God.
Wow, this podcast would turn into something very different. Philadelphia Phillies, owned by Cigarette Lord John Middleton. Notable players. Number 1, Bryson Stott, leading the team in WAR this year. Bryson Stott. That's tough scene. Brandon Marsh, Trey Turner, Nick Castellanos, JT Realmuto, Bryce Harper, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, and Kyle Schwarber.
Like Bryce Harper snuck in there at like 8th.
Well, he missed like 2 months to start the season.
Fair.
Top 100 prospects yet to debut. Both pitchers, Andrew Painter and Mick Abel. We got listener pitches. We got 2 listener pitches. One comes from James in the form of an email. I write to you today to make a pitch for Alex to become a fan of my favorite team, a team Bobby knows very well, the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies' history is long and painful, as they were the first franchise in North American professional sports to lose 10,000 games. However, there have also been some bright spots in their history, winning the World Series in 1980 and 2008, NL pennant in 1915, 1950, 1983, 1993, 2009, and most recently 2022. He goes on to highlight that, they've had a lot of stars over the years, several MVPs in the last couple decades, a pretty stacked roster, as we already noted. The Phillies uniforms are something that makes them stand out from the other teams, with 5 different uniform types used in their daily rotation, such as the normal white home jersey and gray away jersey. They also have the powder blue 1980s uniform, the aforementioned, and the red alternate that they wear in afternoon games, and the cream jersey they wear on Sunday home games. A lot of jerseys in Philadelphia. It's also the original home of, this is an important point, it's also the original home of Alex's former favorite team, the Oakland Athletics. Intriguing. My final point is that becoming Phillies fans will help the podcast and balance out Bobby being a Mets fan. What better team to root for than the rival of your best friend's team? Then you can always bring the Mets' past failures to annoy him, such as the 2007 season. That hurt. That hurt to read.
Was it wrong, though?
It wasn't wrong. We also have a voice note sent in from none other than Batting Around's Steven Hessen with the note, "Sorry, Bobby." I will play that now for us and the listeners.
Hey guys, it's Steven. I promise this is not a bit. I know that the most likely outcome here is that Alex adopts the Mets, and you know what? That makes complete sense and would be totally cool. However, I would like to present for your consideration reasons why Alex should become a Phillies fan. 1. It would be an excellent dynamic for the pod. It might be rough interpersonally, but I fully believe in your friendship and its ability to weather such things. 2. Is it important to you to have a working class fan identity with a chip on your shoulder about nearby teams? Because if so, look no further. 3. Bryce Harper. 4. The throwback maroon and powder blue uniforms. 5. They're nearby, but they're not local, so you have easy access to them, relatively speaking. But you do get to maintain your status as a fan of a team outside of the local market, which makes you cool. It also means that you're less affected by MLB TV blackouts. 6. They're the reigning National League champs, and have clearly demonstrated an ability to make a deep playoff run. They're fun, they're exciting, but they're not so good that it would feel like you're being a frontrunner by choosing them. There's still quite a lot of baseball pain involved, but a much, much more normal amount than someone like you would be used to. 7. They have an owner that has gone on record multiple times about his desire to spend money in order to field a winning product. 8. There is the tenuous, but nevertheless real, connection between the Athletics franchise and the city of Philadelphia. Time has made the connection tenuous, but there is an enduring affection for that franchise among the people in this city. I have no idea if that is a positive or a negative, but I wanted to mention it either way. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. And if it wasn't helpful, I hope it was at least entertaining. Good luck, and fuck John Fisher.
Oh, Steven. Thank you for making such a wonderful case. I gotta say, I don't disagree with anything either of
Why
those
am I
people
getting
said.
talked into this right now?
No.
The
Steven
A's
texted
Philadelphia link is real. Did not even think about that.
Yeah, both people brought that up. Steven texted me on Sunday, and he said, "Oh, fuck. I forgot to send in my message for your guys' podcast. I'm sure you've already recorded this by this point." And you know what I said? "No, Steven, we haven't. You should send it in still." And you know why? Because I'm a fucking idiot.
Yeah, that one's
I
on
should
you.
not have let him
That's on you.
make the case, because that was measured, that was accurate, that was compelling. He didn't resort to screaming and yelling.
Ad hominems.
Exactly. And I fear the Phillies now. I gotta say, they're probably just, based on your reaction alone, they're in contention.
I think so on the rubric, New York Mets number 5, Philadelphia Phillies number 4.
Just L after L. I'm going to say for the listeners at home, this is the exact moment in the podcast that Alex and I realized that this needed to be a 2-part episode. Otherwise, it would be 3 hours. That's just what I'm going to note. And then we're going to keep going on to the Washington Nationals, owned by the Lerner family. Notable players: Heimer Candelario. Tough start. Tough start. Good season, but tough start. Lane Thomas. What position does Lane Thomas play?
Center field?
I don't know. I'm asking you. He is an outfielder. Don't know if he's a true center fielder or not. We're going to keep moving on. Stone Garrett and his unbuttoned shirt. Handsome guy.
Yeah.
CJ Abrams, if he's actually any good, we don't know. Mackenzie Gore, Josiah Gray, and Cade Cavalli. Top 100 prospects yet to debut. James Wood, Elijah Green, and Brady House. We got 2 listener pitches. Let me read through those for you. First one comes from Jeremy. Our long Nationals nightmare is over. Now is the time to get in on rebuilding before liftoff. The Major League roster already features young, exciting players like CJ Abrams, Josiah Gray, and Mackenzie Gore. And the farm system has James Wood, Robert Hassel, Brady House, and probably soon Paul Skeens waiting in the wings. Tough on that last one. Didn't get Paul Skeens, but wishful thinking. I like it. You want jersey aesthetics? The National City Connect is the single best jersey in all of Major League Baseball.
Jesus.
You want a ballpark actually in the city with public transit access? We have that. You want a new ownership group that will actually sign homegrown players to long-term deals? We're working on that. But we did just sign Keibert Ruiz long-term. Look, it's not all perfect, and there's probably still another year or 2 of tough times left, but the glorious cherry blossom jersey ascent of the Nationals is nigh, and now is the time to buy in. And if I may save the best for last, you can always feel good rooting for Sean Doolittle. That comes from Jeremy. A compelling case. I will quickly play for you the voicemail that we also got in support of the Washington Nationals.
So when you first mentioned folks should call in and pitch their team to Alex, I started a note in my phone with key bullet points, and I'm really behind, so I was just listening to the latest episode today, and oh crap, I hope I made it in time. So I'm just going to go down my list that I haven't even looked at since the last time I added something, probably by voice while on the road for work, so there's typos, but whatever. Here I go. Come be a Nats fan. Nats are lovable underdogs. Hey, they're actually not even as bad as we all expected they'd be if you ignore the Reds, who are somehow good this year. But if you ignore that, they won the last 2 series in a row. They're the newest team in baseball, so that's fun. We can always use more fans. We're on the East Coast, where you also are. A history of a lot of trades, especially a lot of trades with Oakland, so you'll recognize some folks, notably Sean Doolittle, who of course is hurt right now. Again, I'm very upset. Let's not talk about it. They're in the NL East, which would make it really funny because of Bobby. It's not the most amazing ballpark in the league, but it is really nice, and there's no bad seats anywhere. Coming in while we're bad means that once we get good again, nobody can accuse you of bandwagoning. Not that there's anything wrong with bandwagoning. I literally wrote a whole blog thing about this, but in case that is a thing to think about, it can go on this list. The longest running Pride Night. This is a big one. So this year was our 18th annual Pride Night out. It's the longest running Pride Night in all of Major League Baseball and the second largest in all of pro sports, only behind the Dodgers, who have their own issues, but who also probably buy a lot of the tickets themselves. And it's not actually grassroots, community purchases, whatever. You'll get a front row seat to the Angelos bullshit. You gotta love more reasons to be angry about baseball, right? That's funny. Clearly I added that before the O's had what might have been the best example of a Pride Night in not just baseball, but all men's sports. But whatever. I absolutely do not ever have to hand it to any Angelos, at least until the massive nonsense is settled and learners can sell. And last but not least, Natsland is the birthplace of queer fancy stats, and that should speak for itself or something. Thanks for listening. Bummed I can't join y'all at Coney Island in a few weeks, so come to DC and hang out with the HSI weirdos at the ballpark. Bye.
Very compelling case. What a delightful voicemail.
Yeah, that was a very good pitch. I think that the point about the fan culture and experience there is really key. Like I feel like we on Tipping Pitches follow a disproportionate amount of Nationals fans.
Yeah, how did that happen?
I don't know, but I'm not mad about it.
Me either.
They all seem like they're having a really good time.
They seem like good, nice people.
Uh-huh. Got a nice little community over there.
They didn't choose all of the Republican senators to buy season tickets to their team.
Yeah.
They're just from that area. They're just,
They do have a nice ballpark. You and I have both been there.
It's okay.
It's fine.
It's okay.
I saw the game there.
How'd the Nationals fare in those games? Not so hot. Recent World Series.
Yeah.
Quasi restocked farm system. Are the Nationals really in contention?
I mean,
in comparison to the Philadelphia Phillies, who we just heard.
See, again, I'm afraid of being too mean here, but I probably not.
Okay. We'll throw them out. We have 2 divisions left, but we have run out of time on this half of the Alex for Sale episode. At original recording, we were hoping to fit it all into one episode, but upon hindsight, that was a little bit ambitious of us.
Right. When you walked in and said, "Hey, if we dedicate 4 minutes to every team, it'll be 2 hours long max." That I should have known then.
With no cold open at all. So when we come back next episode, we have the AL West, the NL West, the AL West, notably where your current team resides. So we're going to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the remaining teams that you have not yet thrown in the dumpster. Those teams are the Philadelphia Phillies, the Baltimore Orioles, just loss after loss for me. Somehow the Cincinnati Reds, the Chicago Cubs, the Minnesota Twins. That's it. Those are the teams that are still eligible based on what we have decided here today. Do you feel good about that crop?
I do feel good about that crop. Lots of teams who I've followed on and off over the last few years, so there's a familiarity there. Whoever came up with the list knew me very well.
It's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody for listening to this week's part 1 of Let's Find Alex a New Team podcast. At time of recording, we're not exactly sure when part 2 will run. We don't know if it'll be the full wait until next week. We don't know if it'll be later this week, but we appreciate everybody's dedication to the length and the denseness of this here podcast. It's been fun for us. I'm excited to see who you keep in the field from the AL West and the NL West. 2 divisions that I wouldn't necessarily say on paper have a lot of strong contenders, knowing you and your baseball fandom, but we will see. Thank you to everybody who, of course, called in, who made a pitch to Alex about what team he should root for, and for everybody who is going to have already done that for next week. If you are listening to this right now, unfortunately for you, we have already recorded part 2, and that means that you cannot call and make your pitch for any of the AL West or NL West teams. I would suggest you don't.
I would say it's not going to make it into the consideration, but
if you want to just call and just chat,
that's what the line is there for.
That actually is what the line is.
We
there
opened
for.
up the line so that folks could call in and vent about whatever,
right?
Vent about their teams, and y'all have done a lot of venting. I just want to say you've used the line very well for this episode.
The number is 785-422-5881. Please follow the links in the various links in the description. Those links might include such things as signing up for our Patreon. They could include such things as submitting questions for our future milestone episode that will require short answer questions, yes or no questions. Or they could include purchasing tickets to come see the Brooklyn Cyclones in person with us and dozens of other members of the Tipping Pitches community at a ballpark that I will no longer name because several people have told me I'm pronouncing it wrong, and I just don't want to learn how to pronounce it. So it's in Coney Island where the Brooklyn Cyclones play. That is all we have time for this week. We will return in the near future with part 2 and with Alex's selection for who he will root for the next 60 years. A heavy burden to bear. Thanks to everybody for listening.
If it could just rain, I might feel something. Guess I never really knew myself. Nah, 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 I never really knew myself. Alright.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alex Rodriguez. Tipping pitches.
Tipping pitches.
This is the one that I love the most.
Tipping pitches.
So we'll see you next week. See ya!